that much. And here they are speaking out saying Christians have got to go to the polls and vote your values.
Yeah, actually, some of them have been critical of others who have been engaged in this process for a long time. And I think, in part, there's a realization that has settled in that we can't abandon one whole element of, God's order for society. And what we've done by taking our hands off of the policy-making realm, the political realm, whatever you want to call it, is that we have left it open to those who have a worldview other than biblical. And here's what we've got as a result.
And now the state, for those who have wanted to ignore the Christian responsibility in government and politics, now we have a situation where the church is being encroached on by the state.
Absolutely. And that's but see, Tim, that's exactly what we've warned.
Yes, we have.
That if we left the policy-making realm to those who were indifferent, if not hostile, toward a Christian worldview, that eventually that worldview that says, essentially it's this: a biblical worldview sees God as in control and that he is the ultimate authority, as opposed to a humanist worldview that sees man that can and must save himself and is the ultimate authority in everything. And those two are in conflict. And so big government cannot survive in the presence of a view of a big God. So if you want to have big government, you got to have a little God. And that's what they're doing by shoving God and his instructions, his principles that the founders built this nation upon to the side. And that's been going on for decades now. Finally, some of these Bible teachers have come to a realization that their ability to preach the gospel is directly impacted by government, and their ability to live out their faith unhindered by the government is being impacted by our neglect in that realm.
Go to afa.net, folks, and not right now because Tony and I are on the air.
That's right. So wait till we go off.
Wait till we go off. Go to afa.net. On the right side, you'll see AFA Hot Topics. And the first line there says David Jeremiah on the election. You click on that, you can watch that message. It's about 45 minutes, and I'm telling you, it is awesome. Tony, another thing related to this that Dr. Jeremiah points out in his message is that we are not electing a national pastor here next Tuesday for president. We're electing the best qualified person that comes closest to our value system that can lead the executive branch of the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
We're not electing a national pastor. I don't know what happens, and I'm not saying, man, I would have loved Mike Huckabee to be the guy, because Mike's a fellow believer, evangelical believer, and so he's with us on the issues, and I think would have been a great presidential candidate, but he decided not to run. But my point is, Christians sometimes get this idea that they can't vote for somebody unless they agree with them theologically right down the line. And that's just, do you ask your city councilman what he thinks about the Apostles' Creed? No, you don't. You don't know what your county commissioner believes, most of you just know whether the guy's honest, does a good job, and is a good civil servant. But all of a sudden, when we get to be voted for president, we get our fellow Christians, some of them, Tony, who say, well, they don't believe, they're not a Christian, so I can't vote for them. So we all of a sudden apply this theological test to them.
To step back, I think, John Jay, the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, said that, it should be our preference, it's our opportunity to elect Christians to office, and that we should do that. That was, paraphrasing there. But I do think that when we have a choice, and we should pursue those who, and not just because they're a member of a particular church or particular denomination, but because they are Christians in their conduct and in their their lifestyle. They have a biblical worldview. I think that should be our preference, and when we have that opportunity, it certainly is going to be to the benefit, whether it's on the school board or whether it's on the city council or whether it's President of the United States. But more times than not, we don't have that opportunity. And in part, Tim, it goes back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago. Our pastors haven't been challenging men and women who have a call or a conviction to be involved in the public arena. They haven't challenged them to do that. They've almost done the opposite, sending the message that, politics, government, that's dirty. We as Christians need to stay out of it. No, we need to sanctify it by our presence and go into it. That way we would have greater choices when it comes down to these elections. So you have to look at each situation, on its own. In this case, we have, and people say, well, we've got other candidates on the ballot. No, come on. You have two candidates that have a chance of winning. You have Barack Obama, whose policies we know are very, very clear. For the last 4 years, he's been systematically taking America apart morally and economically, one policy at a time. We have Mitt Romney. Yes, we have significant theological differences with him. He is a Mormon, we as evangelicals. However, we do have shared values. We see marriage as a union of a man and a woman. We see life as being created in the image of God and worthy to be protected. And he is committed to not spending taxpayer dollars to fund abortion. And the list goes on. So yes, we have shared values with him. The other candidate we do not. If you don't vote, Tim, if folks don't vote because they say, well, he's not a Christian or he doesn't share my theological views, you know what you're doing? You're casting a vote for Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah, because it's one or the other. One of those gentlemen will be elected. Also, there is a great distinction in two other areas I think relevant to our listening audience or important to our listening audience, Tony, and that is the treatment of Israel.
Absolutely.
Governor Romney is very pro-Israel, very strong commitment there, while President Obama, we know his record with Israel is not strong. I mean, in fact, he's been giving Israel a cold shoulder, quite frankly.
I think he's gone out of his way to give Israel a cold shoulder. He's not just been, I don't think he's been indifferent. I think he's been hostile toward
I agree. I'll give you two examples of that real quick because people may say, well, what are you talking about? Well, you remember he said that the peace process ought to start in Israel between the Palestinians and the Israelis, that with moving it back to the pre-1967 borders.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Remember that statement? And Benjamin Netanyahu said that'd be suicide for our country to do something like that. To even suggest something like that from a president of the United States, that's never been suggested.
Yeah, people
before.
don't realize that have not been to Israel do not realize how small that country is, and these boundaries that they're talking about would enable them basically to set up the terrorists or those their enemies to set up and basically fire rockets at will.
Yeah.
And on Israel.
The two other things that he's done, President Obama, to be hostile, to Tony's point, to Israel. The other is he, remember when that flotilla came down a couple of years ago from Turkey and wanted to go into the Gaza Strip without the Israelis being able to check, see if there were weapons on there, because the Israelis, Hamas fires weapons into Israel from Gaza, and so the Israelis have, they've determined they're going to have to you can get your items into Gaza, but it first has to be checked by the Israelis at a port there in Israel. Well, this flotilla didn't want to stop. They wanted to go directly to Gaza, sent from Turkey. Well, the commandos there boarded the ships and people were killed. And what did President Obama do? He didn't call Benjamin Netanyahu to say, we're sorry for your loss of life and we stand with you. You have a right to protect yourself and search any ships that come into your area. What he said was he called the Turkish prime minister or whatever and said, we're sorry for your loss of life. Well, Turkey should have never let that flotilla go in the first place if they knew they were going to provoke the Israelis. The third thing
Yeah.
he's done real quickly is he's never visited Israel as president of the United States. He's visited, I'm talking about Barack Obama, he's visited Cairo and Egypt, and, with the we love you Muslims of the world, embrace us, embrace me speech. He had that. He went around the world on a second trip I know of, but he's never been to Israel as the president of the United States to show we're standing with him. So I agree with you.
Clear difference.
Clear difference between he and Governor Romney. Another place that President Obama's never been, that's the American southwestern border, if you can believe that. He hadn't been in 4 years. He sued Arizona, for trying to do something about illegal immigration there, but he himself has not been to the Arizona-Mexican border to look at it, at least to show some concern. So anyway, I will not get myself started any more than that.
Yeah, calm down. Now get off your
okay, all
soapbox.
right.
Let me